Okay.
But no, I would say history overwhelms me. Other things overwhelm me, but not history, no. Because I think if you're not careful, history can be a real weight and an anchor around you.
The palace did not tremble because a prince shouted. It trembled because a letter spoke from beyond the grave. In one private legal meeting, Queen Elizabeth's own words were placed before Prince William, and the meaning was devastatingly clear. The Sussexes were to be blocked from a protected royal role. For Harry, it was not just rejection, it was exile by memory. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. William sat without moving as the papers were opened. The room at Windsor felt heavy before a single sentence was read, because everyone inside understood that this was not a normal family disagreement. Palace lawyers had confirmed that private letters written by the Queen instructed that Harry and Meghan must not regain protected access, influence, or formal standing within a key royal family arrangement. Protected access meant the private permissions, briefings, invitations, and internal influence given only to those trusted inside the working royal circle. For Meghan, the decision meant the door was not only closing on Harry's past, but on the future she believed their family still deserved. The prince listened as senior counsel began reading. Senior counsel meant the lead legal advisor trusted to explain the strongest legal meaning of the letters, and every word made the silence sharper. William did not interrupt. He did not ask for softer language. He simply looked down at the page as Elizabeth's voice seemed to return through ink, memory, and duty. The future king knew this would wound Harry more deeply than any public statement ever could, because it did not come from a minister, an aide, or a hostile newspaper. It came from their grandmother. Harry received the message shortly afterward, and disbelief hit before anger. He asked whether William had personally approved the shutout, because in his mind, a brother could still stop what lawyers had confirmed. Meghan watched the pain turn into betrayal, and she understood that Harry was no longer hearing a legal decision. He was hearing William choose the crown over blood. William felt that accusation before it was even spoken. The letters did not merely advise caution. They created a moral boundary he believed he could not cross without dishonoring the monarch who had carried the family through crisis after crisis. Aides around him understood the decision was not temporary, not negotiable, and not another palace delay tactic. It was sealed by Elizabeth's final private wishes. The closed door changed everything. Harry stood outside the circle. William stood within it, and the family line between love and authority had never looked colder. And as the door closes on Harry, the next question becomes impossible to avoid. Who was truly protected by Elizabeth's letters, and who was left exposed? Before this moment became a constitutional shockwave, it was a family wound. William was not simply the heir guarding the monarchy, and Harry was not simply the outsider demanding entry. They were two brothers, standing on opposite sides of the same childhood, both convinced they were carrying Diana's pain, Elizabeth's legacy, and their own version of truth into a room that could not hold them both. William carried the decision like a weight he could not put down. After the legal meeting ended, the prince remained near the window, one hand pressed hard against the desk, as if the polished wood could steady what the letters had unsettled inside him. He believed the Queen had trusted him with more than family memory. She had trusted him to protect the monarchy from emotional pressure, public drama, and any return that could shake the fragile structure around the crown. For him, the crown was not just jewels, titles, or palace walls. It was the living system of duty, loyalty, and public trust that held the royal family together when private feelings threatened to tear it apart. Harry saw the same decision from the opposite side. To him, those letters did not feel like protection. They felt like grief turned into a weapon, a private family wound transformed into a locked royal order against him and Meghan. Away from the palace, he paced as the news settled into his chest, each step sharper than the last. Meghan watched his face change before he spoke. First came disbelief, then pain, then the anger that always arrives when love feels replaced by control. When Harry heard Elizabeth's name used as the reason, the blow became unbearable, because the grandmother he remembered had now become the authority used to keep him outside. Charles felt the ground shift beneath both sons. The king understood that his mother's private words had become the line he could not soften without appearing weak, divided, or careless with her final judgment. He wanted to comfort Harry, yet he could not openly challenge William. He wanted to support the prince, yet he knew support would sound like abandonment to his younger son. That was the cruelty of the moment. No answer allowed him to remain only a father. Catherine sensed the fracture before others were ready to name it. She understood that William's choice might protect the crown, but it could also burn the last emotional bridge back to Harry. The princess did not need a public statement to know what was happening. She saw it in William's silence, in Charles's hesitation, and in the way Harry's pain had become impossible to separate from the monarchy's survival. Yet the letters did not appear out of nowhere. They were not born in a single legal meeting, nor created by one brother's refusal to forgive another. They came from something older, sharper, and more private than anyone outside the palace understood. To understand why Elizabeth's words carried such final force, the story must return to the private incident that turned hesitation into a written command. Every royal rupture has a moment everyone remembers afterward. Not the loudest moment, not the most public one. The decisive moment usually happens behind a closed door, with lowered voices, careful faces, and a silence that says more than anger ever could. For Queen Elizabeth, that point of no return came during one private conversation at Windsor that changed everything. Harry entered that meeting believing he was asking for fairness, not power. The ceremony earlier that day had already left the family tense, with polite smiles covering old wounds and every small gesture carrying a hidden meaning. He wanted written assurances that Meghan and the Sussex children would retain special family access and future ceremonial consideration. Special family access meant private permission to remain close to royal events, family gatherings, and sensitive moments that ordinary relatives would never automatically receive. Future ceremonial consideration meant a possible place in major royal occasions, where presence alone could signal status, acceptance, and influence. Elizabeth listened without interruption. She had spent a lifetime hearing requests wrapped in loyalty, pain, fear, and hope. But this one troubled her in a way she could not ignore. Harry spoke as a husband and father protecting Meghan and the children, yet the monarch heard something larger beneath his words. The request seemed to blend family healing with protected royal standing, and that was the dangerous part. Love could bring a grandson back into a room. It could not be allowed to reopen the door to authority without trust. Harry left believing he had defended his family. He carried the fierce relief of a man who thought he had finally said what needed to be said. But Elizabeth remained behind, deeply saddened, staring at the empty chair where her grandson had sat. The Queen was not angry. That made the moment even heavier. Anger passes, sadness settles. She understood that Harry's pain was real, and still she knew that pain could not become the key to palace influence. Charles found his mother unusually quiet later that evening. The king, then still standing in the long shadow of her reign, asked what had happened, and Elizabeth gave him the sentence that would later haunt everyone involved. Love could not be allowed to rewrite duty. She did not say it coldly. She said it like someone accepting a truth she wished were not true. Elizabeth acted before hesitation could return. That same evening, she instructed that her private concerns be recorded in letters, not as punishment, but as a safeguard against future pressure. Those letters drew the line that would later devastate Harry. He could remain family, but the Sussexes could not reclaim protected royal authority through emotional appeal. Years later, when lawyers opened those letters before William, the words carried the full weight of that Windsor night. What began as Elizabeth's quiet safeguard now becomes William's burden, and Harry is about to demand an answer face to face. There are arguments between brothers, and then there are moments when a family realizes history has entered the room. When Harry finally faced William, The silence before the first word was more brutal than the confrontation itself. No aides softened it. No courtiers interrupted it. Two sons of Diana stood across from each other, and Elizabeth's letters sat between them like a locked gate. William had agreed to the meeting because he refused to let officials carry the whole weight of his choice. The prince knew Harry would see any formal message as another palace wall, another cold sign that the family had stopped speaking like family. So he allowed the private encounter, not because he was ready to bend, but because he still believed his brother deserved to hear the truth from him. The legal confirmation had made the boundary clear, and legal confirmation meant the lawyers had reviewed the letters and confirmed their force inside the royal decision. But a brother's pain could not be answered by paper alone. Harry arrived carrying anger that had already hardened into accusation. He saw the folder on the table, and he understood what it meant, before William said a word. The letters were there, close enough to feel real, but not close enough to touch. That small distance became the whole wound. Harry asked whether William was hiding behind their grandmother's memory, and the sentence cut through the room with brutal force. The prince's face tightened because the accusation reached the place he had tried hardest to protect. He was not hiding from the queen. He was obeying her. William answered with a quietness that made the moment even sharper. He told Harry that Elizabeth had given him a responsibility, not an excuse, and that he would not undo her final boundary just to ease the pain of the present. Harry heard duty. He felt abandonment. He believed the family had taken the woman they both loved and turned her into a gatekeeper against him. William believed the opposite. He believed ignoring her words would be the true betrayal, not only of the monarch, but of the fragile trust she had tried to preserve. Harry reached toward the folder, and William placed one hand over it. The movement said what no speech could soften. The letters were not bargaining material. They were not proof to be fought over, twisted, or used in another emotional battle. Harry pulled back, wounded by the gesture more than the words, because it showed that the door had already been locked before he entered. Harry then spoke Diana's name, and the room changed. He said their mother would have wanted compassion. William did not deny it. He simply answered that compassion could not mean giving back influence without trust. That was the knife edge between them. One brother asking for love to open the gate, the other insisting love could no longer control the keys. The meeting ended with Harry leaving first, carrying hurt that no royal title could cover. But the real power behind the shutout was not the argument. It was the legal machinery now moving behind William. As Harry walks away wounded, the palace shifts from emotion to authority. And the question becomes, who truly controls the decision now? The monarchy survives because private emotion is often translated into formal power. A grandmother's concern becomes a letter becomes legal guidance becomes a closed door. That is what Harry discovers too late. By the time his anger reaches the palace walls, William is no longer acting as a brother alone. He is standing inside a structure Elizabeth herself helped build. William understood that the argument with Harry had ended, but the machinery behind it had only begun. The prince was no longer facing a brother's fury across a private room. He was now facing the full weight of a decision shaped by lawyers, royal procedure, and Elizabeth's final written wishes. Legal guidance meant the formal advice given by trusted lawyers to explain what a document allows, blocks, or demands. In this case, the guidance was devastatingly clear. The Queen's letters carried decisive moral and procedural authority because they were written with care, witnessed properly, and preserved for exactly this kind of dispute. The lawyers did not speak like men delivering gossip. They spoke like men closing a vault. They explained that William held practical control because the future of royal access, ceremonial trust, and internal family protections now ran through his approval. Ceremonial trust meant the protected confidence given to royals who may appear at major family events, stand near the crown, and carry public meaning simply by being present. Harry wanted that door reopened. William now knew that reopening it would not be seen as kindness. It would be seen as weakness, uncertainty, and a refusal to honor the boundary Elizabeth had left behind. Charles read the legal summary in silence. The king set it down slowly, crushed by the truth that his mother's words had left him little room to comfort Harry without weakening William. He wanted to be a father. He was forced to remain a monarch. That was the cruel bargain inside the palace. Love could still exist, but authority could no longer bend around it. Camilla watched Charles struggle and understood the danger at once. The queen consort knew that if he tried to soften the decision, William could appear undermined, and the monarchy could look divided at the exact moment it needed control. She saw the pain in the king's face, but she also saw the risk. A divided palace would not heal Harry. It would only turn one family wound into a national crisis. William then heard the sentence that changed everything. A senior lawyer confirmed that the Sussex block was not aimed at personal affection. It was targeted specifically at formal access, influence, and institutional standing. The prince realized the letters did more than keep Harry outside. They protected his future reign from another public cycle of demand, apology, and negotiation. But once power becomes official, consequences become immediate, and Harry's exclusion begins to reshape the palace around him. With the decision no longer private, the first signs of fallout begin. And one reaction inside the family proves the wound is deeper than anyone expected. The palace wanted silence. It got shock instead. Once William's decision hardened into reality, every corridor seemed to carry the same question. Had Elizabeth protected the monarchy, or had her letters destroyed the last fragile thread between her grandsons? The answer arrived not in a statement, but in small human reactions. A missed call, a closed door, a chair left empty. Harry felt the new reality before anyone explained it fully. His access to a planned private family consultation was withdrawn, and the notice that reached the Sussex office carried the cold weight of finality. A private family consultation meant a closed royal discussion where senior family members could speak about sensitive matters away from public pressure. For Harry, being removed from that room meant more than missing a meeting. It meant the family had decided his voice no longer belonged where royal futures were quietly shaped. Meghan understood the meaning almost as quickly as he did. Harry stared at the notice for a long moment, then folded it once and placed it on the table, as if making it smaller could make the wound smaller too. He did not want Meghan to see how badly it had shaken him, but she knew. She saw the silence in him. She saw the old pain returning, the pain of being near enough to the family name to be judged by it, yet far enough from the inner circle to be powerless against it. William received his own update soon after. The prince was told that Harry had tried to call Charles twice, and for one brief second, the future king looked pained. He understood what those calls meant. They were not just calls from a son to a father. They were a final attempt to find mercy somewhere inside a system that had already moved beyond mercy. But William forced himself back into control and said the decision could not become a family negotiation again. If it did, Elizabeth's letters would lose the authority that made them matter. Charles hesitated over a personal message to Harry. The king wanted to send comfort, something human, something fatherly, but his hand stopped before the words could become action. He knew any comfort might be read as resistance to the queen's written wishes. With that, fear trapped him. He could feel Harry slipping farther away, yet every move toward him risked making William look exposed. Catherine saw what others tried not to say. She privately warned William that shutting the door might be necessary, but it would be remembered emotionally, not legally. The princess understood that history rarely remembers the wording of a notice. It remembers the son who was left outside, the brother who held the line, and the father who could not rescue either of them. The fallout had begun, but its sharpest pain had not yet arrived. It was no longer only about Harry's exclusion. It was about what the decision was doing to William from the inside, and why even victory could feel like loss. Behind the official silence, William is about to face the one person who can ask him the question no lawyer dared to speak. The turning point did not come from lawyers, courtiers, or public pressure. It came in a private room, after the papers had been locked away and the palace had gone still. Catherine looked at William, not as the heir, not as the future king, but as a husband carrying a wound he refused to name. Then she asked the question that stopped him cold. William withdrew after the fallout, because the weight had finally caught up with him. The prince had held the line in front of Harry, lawyers, aides, and Charles. But duty becomes heavier when no one is watching. He had enforced Elizabeth's final boundary, yet the victory felt strangely hollow. A final boundary meant the last clear limit the Queen had left behind, the point beyond which William believed he had no right to move. It mattered, because crossing that line would not only reopen Harry's path, it would make Elizabeth's private warning look weak, and William could not let her last command become another debate. Catherine entered without ceremony, and that made the silence more dangerous. The princess did not arrive as a public figure trying to steady the monarchy. She came as the one person who could read William's face before he chose his words. Without aides nearby, without legal language filling the air, the room became painfully human. She understood why the letters had to stand. She also understood that a correct decision could still leave scars no official record would ever explain. Catherine asked whether he was protecting the crown or protecting himself from being hurt by Harry again. The question struck harder than any accusation from outside the family, because it carried love, not attack. William did not answer at once. The future king had spent years training himself to separate feeling from responsibility, but this time the two were tangled together. He admitted, slowly, that every decision involving Harry felt like losing his brother twice, once to conflict, once to duty. Catherine did not ask him to undo the decision. That was the power of her counsel. She knew the blocked arrangement could not be reopened without turning Elizabeth's letters into paper without force. But she helped William see the difference between strength and coldness. He could uphold the letters without making Harry feel erased. He could protect the monarchy without pretending the brother outside the gate meant nothing to him. William made his choice in that quiet moment. He would not reopen the protected arrangement. He would not allow formal access, influence, or standing to return through emotional pressure. But he would send Harry one final personal message, separating family love from royal authority. The message would not reverse the shutout. It would not heal years of hurt. Yet it would show that William's silence was not hatred, and his duty was not emptiness. And when the news finally reaches the outside world, one image on a London front page captures the entire rupture in a single brutal frame. By morning, the private pain became public judgment. Britain woke to a royal fracture, printed in black ink, framed not as gossip, but as a defining test of William's future reign. The palace could control documents, meetings, and statements. It could not control the image now spreading across breakfast tables, phone screens, and crowds gathering under the cold stone walls of Windsor. Harry saw the coverage before the palace could soften its meaning. The story had broken with brutal simplicity. William had shut him out after lawyers confirmed Elizabeth's letters blocked the Sussexes from protected royal standing. Protected royal standing meant the special place inside the working royal world, where access, public role, family trust, and institutional influence all meet. For Harry, that phrase did not feel formal. It felt personal. It meant his pain had been turned into public debate, and the private wound he had carried as a son, husband, and brother had become national theater. Meghan urged him not to answer in anger. She understood the trap waiting for him. If Harry responded with fury, the palace would appear steady, while he looked wounded and uncontrolled. If he stayed silent, the world might believe the shutout had broken him. That was the cruel balance of the moment. Meghan could see it clearly, and Harry could feel it closing around him. The more the headlines repeated Elizabeth's name, the more he felt pushed outside a family story he still believed belonged to him. William watched the broadcast from inside Kensington Palace, his jaw tight, and his expression held in careful restraint. The prince knew every viewer was deciding what kind of future king he would become. Some would see strength, others would see cruelty. Some would call it duty, others would call it betrayal. But William understood something colder than public opinion. Once the story left the palace, he no longer controlled how his choice would be remembered. One London newspaper captured the day in a single brutal frame. Its front page showed William and Harry walking in opposite directions beneath the headline, "The Queen's Final Line." The words landed like a verdict before anyone had spoken one. Outside Windsor Castle, a small crowd gathered near the gates. Some held flowers for Elizabeth, treating her letters like a final act of protection. Others argued softly that her memory should never have been used to settle the Sussex question. The palace issued a brief response, careful and controlled, emphasizing continuity, duty, and respect for the late monarch's wishes. Continuity meant keeping the monarchy stable from one reign to the next, even when family emotion threatened to shake it. But beneath the noise, the final meaning became clearer. This was never only about Harry returning, it was about William defining the monarchy he intended to inherit. When the noise fades and the headlines are folded away, only one verdict remains about what William chose, what Harry lost, and what Elizabeth's letters preserved. In the end, there was no victory loud enough to celebrate, and no defeat simple enough to mourn. William had not merely shut out Harry. He had accepted the coldest burden of inheritance, to protect a crown that sometimes demands distance from the people one still loves. Harry had not merely been blocked. He had been forced to face a truth written before the final battle began. William stood with the ache of a man who had honored Elizabeth and lost more of Harry in the same breath. The prince's decision now carried the force of duty, legal confirmation, and the late Queen's final understanding of what the monarchy needed to survive. Legal confirmation meant trusted lawyers had reviewed the letters and confirmed their power inside the royal decision. That mattered, because this was no longer a private disagreement between brothers. It had become a lasting royal boundary, one that separated family belonging from royal authority and changed the Sussex question forever. Harry felt the wound differently. He was not told he had stopped being family, and that made the pain sharper, not softer. The message was colder than rejection. He could still belong by blood, but he could not regain access through love, memory, or emotional appeal. For Harry, that meant the institution had decided trust, once broken, could not simply be restored by need. Meghan understood the meaning beside him, and she knew the Sussex name had now been placed outside the protected circle in a way no public answer could easily undo. Charles accepted what no father wants to accept. The king could not rescue both sons from choices already made. If he softened the line for Harry, he weakened William. If he defended the prince too firmly, he deepened the hurt of his younger son. His silence became the saddest proof that the old family order was gone. Charles could still love them both, but he could no longer pretend love alone could hold the monarchy together. Catherine saw the deeper meaning before the public fully understood it. The princess knew William had crossed a threshold from prince to protector, from wounded brother to future king. The monarchy had moved from emotional repair to controlled survival, and that shift carried both strength and sorrow. Elizabeth's letters had not simply blocked Harry. They had forced William to choose permanence over persuasion, duty over reunion, and the crown's survival over one final attempt to bring everyone back inside. The door did not close because William stopped loving his brother. It closed because the crown could no longer afford to confuse love with access. Harry remained outside the line, not erased, but no longer empowered. William remained inside it, not untouched, but changed by the cost. The story ends with a painful certainty. William kept Elizabeth's line intact, Harry remained outside it, and the monarchy stepped forward, changed, colder, stronger, and forever marked by the letters that spoke when the Queen no longer could. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.